Alright, so this is a hitter request from one of our hitters on deck. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, sir. It's Vanalisa Chima. You said, hello, Mr. Quick Hits. Well, you even put a Mr. on it, man. Respect on my name. Respect on your fucking name, too, sir. You said you're currently training karate, and soon I'll start training BJJ and kickboxing. My plan is to combine these three martial arts to accomplish my goal of learning fighting for self-defense as well as an amateur competition. Can you please make a video addressing the ideal combination of a mixed martial artist to become a complete fighter for amateur and self-defense purposes, and why? So that's your first question. Let me answer that one first, in my opinion only. In my opinion, so the self-defense thing is totally different from competing in any type of karate or BJJ and all that, because when it's sport, there's a lot of thinking that goes into it. When it's self-defense, it's fight or flight. That means you gotta fucking do what you gotta do and get the fuck out of Dodge. You're not trying to stay around. And self-defense, man, you'll literally go to jail for pummeling somebody to death. They're gonna say, hey, well, you already knocked the motherfucker out. Why'd you start kicking him in the face? Why did you start dropping elbows across the fucking head? Why did you continue? Why were there 20 unanswered punches before you stopped? Now this motherfucker's in a coma. So it's a totally different world. What I will say is, if you want to learn self-defense, I would go with some shit like Krav Maga, because it teaches you how to create space. It teaches you some risk control shit, and literally people in the military and police have to use that shit because they need to learn how to control somebody really quickly. And that's what you need in self-defense. You need to just make sure you can control the situation and get the fuck out of Dodge. That's what I would recommend. If you're talking about your amateur career, what I would say is I would not ever step onto an amateur MMA fight before I was 100% good at a double leg takedown, transitioning from a double leg takedown to a high crotch takedown, both sides, and understanding Greco-Roman wrestling. Not understanding how to get every takedown, but understanding foot placement and how to use your balance to not get thrown off. That's what you need as far as MMA. You need to know that about wrestling. Now, as far as the striking for MMA, you need to understand Muay Thai knees, because you can make somebody run into those. You could throw those into somebody against the cage. Those are the only two. I'm not talking, we don't have to get all fucking technical with all the fucking flying knees and double flying knees and all that shit. I'm saying if somebody's rushing you, you need to understand where to throw that knee at. Right in the middle of the stomach and the chest, right into the hip. That'll just fucking pretty much paralyze somebody on the spot. And you need to know where to throw those knees at against the cage. So you need to know those those knees, excuse me. For the boxing, if you can learn a 1-2 and be good at it, if you can learn a 1-2-3 and be good at it, and you can learn a 1-2-3-4, that's all the boxing you really need, in my opinion. If you're doing this shit just because it's like, I want to be an amateur MMA fighter. So those combinations right there, as long as you understand that just because you could throw a combination, you don't have to throw it all at the head. That same combination can be thrown at the chest. It can be thrown to the body. You could go up and down with the same combination. It's literally not about just throwing the same combination. Jab, cross to the head. You could throw the jab to the head, and you could throw the cross to the fucking body. You could throw the jab and circle out and then throw the cross. You could throw the jab, cross, and then throw an uppercut while you're walking out. I think people get too set in what they see with people throwing pads, and that's why the Cuban boxing program is so much ahead of all the other boxing programs, because they teach you, dude, you could throw the same combination 1,000 different ways, and they're all effective, and they're all different. It's the same punches, but they're all different angles based on your foot movement, based on if you're moving forward, moving backwards, stepping out, and based on the timing. You might throw a snapping jab that gets her in half a second. You don't have to throw a cross right behind it. You could throw a cross feint, and then throw a cross right behind that and knock a motherfucker out. It's just called pull. So that's what I'm gonna say about that. You said, how would you rank the martial arts, whichever ones you mentioned above, in terms of importance, and why are they equally important? If you have your hands right, when you're with those combinations, you could literally determine the distance where the fight is fought at. So you'll understand not to smother your own punches. You'll understand when you see a motherfucker trying to cut off the octagon against you, you could circle out, you can back up, you could literally fucking just do a pivot step. All of these things make a difference. It's not about moving forward and moving backwards the entire time. It is a thinking sport, but that's why shadow boxing is so important. People don't understand shadow boxing is all timing, it's all movement, it's all understanding that you don't just stand still the entire time. When we're talking about those knees, that's something else. When somebody's too close, you could throw a quick knee just to get a little bit of space. One of the things that hurt the fucking most that ever happened to me was just fucking around. You know, we used to call it playing UFC back in the day. Me and my friends, we'll just do everything. 50% punches to the face, no real power, and everything else was real. You know, the kicks, the fucking chokeouts, everything. And one of the things that was a real injury for me, that was a big ass bruise, and that shit hurt for an extended amount of time, was a fucking knee right to the hip bone. Just boom, just a quick knee, pop, right to the hip bone. And that shit was crippling. That shit went numb. That motherfucking leg was fucked up for a couple of weeks, and the bruise didn't go away for over a month. And I was like, damn, and we weren't even fighting for it. I was just, boom, he just threw a knee, pop, right to the hip. And I was like, oh shit. And then a knee to the solar plexus, as they call it, right between the chest and stomach. That shit'll literally just have your ass on the ground, not able to move. The Greco-Roman wrestling, man, that's the shit that you always see against the cage, where people are fighting for position. That's so fucking important, because if you don't know how to hold your balance and things like that, somebody could always get you at a bad angle and take you down no matter what. Which one is, are they all equally important? In my opinion, yes they are. If you're not comfortable throwing hands, you should not be fighting anyone. If you're not comfortable with throwing knees, you should not be doing any MMA fighting. If you're not comfortable with a double leg takedown, you should not be doing MMA, because you have to be comfortable in that position. And it's awkward when you're down on one knee or you're down on two knees for a split second and the other guy's able to drop elbows on your head. But that's why you have to be able to set that shit up with a nice jab, with a nice jab cross, with a nice jab cross, step out, boom, double leg takedown. That's why all that shit is equally important, in my opinion. You said, besides wrestling, have you ever trained any martial arts for how long? I always fucked around with a little bit of everything, to be honest with you, just because I always liked that shit. Just because I have a lot of military people in my family, a lot of police officers and shit like that in my family. So there's always alpha male shit going on. There's always a lot of trash talking. There's always fucking WrestleMania going on the spot. Like, people don't get along for a moment, everybody will start throwing hands, or we'll just get into a quick tussle. Hey, somebody call somebody a bitch, and then it'll turn into a fucking fight real quick. So it's just always been rough housing. It's always been a lot of rough housing in my entire life. So I've done wrestling, I've done jiu-jitsu, I've done boxing, I've done a little bit of everything fucking around, to be honest with you. How long? I would just say my entire life, man. I never wanted to be a fighter, man, so I never took it that fucking serious. I've always been more of a street fighter, more of a fucking alpha male type of person. Never been a bully, so I never really just like slapped some fucking unassuming person around. But every time there was a fight, I was always the fucking hammer, willing to bang out the nail into the fucking ground. So that's what I'll say about that. You said, in your self-defense experience, if you have one, which martial arts style did you find yourself using the most? I would always say my jab, my cross, and my takedown. Always. Always in the fight. I'll tell you that right now. I would throw that jab so fucking quick. And the bad thing, and it's an adrenaline thing. Like, as soon as I know I'm about to get in a fight, I just, boom, throw the jab, and then I'll just decide, you know, if this motherfucker's too close to me, I'll just literally go into a body lock, or I literally just drop down for literally a high crotch and just lift the motherfucker up and drop them. Or if they're far away, I'll literally just throw that jab and cross, and then when they're stumbling, I'll just start ground and pounding them. And that shit's happened so many times. I could honestly say I've never been in a fight where I didn't knock the person down or knock the person out. Never happened. Even when I got jumped by multiple guys, I think it was 3 guys, I knocked 2 of them down, and then I got hit from behind with the second one. I mean, with the third person, sucker punched me from behind, but the other 2 motherfuckers dropped, just boom, boom, boom. I was like, damn, I'm on fire right now. You said, do you currently train MMA, practice any martial arts or MMA? Why? No, I do not do any of that stuff full time. I am about to do a sparring match with some boxing gloves though coming up soon. Unfortunately, you know, I'm not gonna post a video or anything, but I am gonna go in here and throw some fucking hands. I'm gonna throw some fucking hands. We're gonna have headgear on. And all that shit. We're gonna do 6 rounds, I think they said. So I've been getting in shape for that shit slowly. It's nothing that's gonna happen right now. It's probably gonna happen in the spring. But I want to test myself, man. I want to see what it's all about. I want this amateur fighter to kick my ass so I can really get some respect to these other people. Cause I'll be the first one to tell you, man, I don't really believe a lot of shit that I hear. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm confident in my fucking hands, so I'm about to go throw these motherfuckers. You said, lastly, in your experience, how do you know if a mixed martial art coach knows the stuff or not, or is the right one for you? That's actually a great question, because I always said if I was going to train MMA or something and the coach cannot whoop my ass on the first day, I'm not buying what that motherfucker's selling. See, but then there's a lot of different stuff that plays into that, man. It's weight, it's size, it's experience. So, and it's if we're going 100% too. So it's kind of like, what MMA school am I going to be able to walk into and just tell the coach, like, hey, dude, I want to fucking go 100% with you right now, and I want you to whoop my ass, and then I'll be your student if you can whoop my ass. All of that's highly unlikely. And it doesn't mean that the coach is a pussy for not just beating up some guy off of the street. You know what I mean? What I would say is credentials. Credentials mean everything. If he's a world champion at anything, he knows what he's talking about to a certain extent. But if it's just some fucking fat guy with a gi on, it's like, come on, why am I listening to what the fuck this guy's saying? Why am I listening to you? And the funny thing is, I used to have that attitude, like, if you're a fucking fat coach, I'm not really listening to you. But at the same time, that's kind of ignorant, because just because somebody's overweight, it literally doesn't mean that they don't know what you're talking about. There's so many bodybuilding coaches. These fools are just fat fucks, and their clients have the best physiques. You know what I mean? So knowledge is in the eye of the beholder, not necessarily in the body of the beholder, if that makes sense. I would say, if you're gonna waste your time or spend your time and spend your hard-earned money doing MMA training, you should go to an MMA school. Now, I wouldn't be mixing it up with a boxing program, an MMA program, a Muay Thai program, because they're gonna want you to be a student of their game. They're gonna want to teach you everything correct about boxing. All of that's just not gonna work in MMA. Your boxing stance, your boxing angles may not all work in MMA. There's a certain reason it's a hybrid sport, because it's a beautiful transition of a little bit of this, of a little bit of that makes it all work so fluidly. If you go into a boxing gym trying your MMA boxing, you're gonna get your shit clipped up. I told a story before on my channel where I had a friend that was an amateur boxer, and he's like, dude, man, like, come at me like we're gonna fucking fight. Let me see what you would do. And I showed him, and this motherfucker's footwork was like art. The combination was so fucking tight. He would have lit my shit up so fucking fast. And that was the first time I ever had to pay homage and say, damn, you literally would have fucking knocked me out for sure. Because he literally threw like a 7-hit combination in like 2 seconds, and I walked into everything, and then he sidestepped out and was still throwing, and I was like, damn. But if it was a street fight, what would have happened? He would have been throwing all that shit, but he was so close to me, I would have snatched his ass up and he would have went on a fucking ride. So he would have never won a street fight. But would he have won a boxing match? I had to say yes. I would have had to say yes at that time, yes. That was hella years ago. So, an MMA coach, I would say if he has any world champion credentials, only a few motherfuckers at the top have that world champion credentials. So, he at least is knowledgeable. Is he still a badass? I don't fucking know. But it's always easy to teach something. You know, if it's a good teacher, obviously, if he's a good teacher. So I would say, man, if you walk into the MMA gym, not a boxing gym, not a karate gym, especially karate's such a sport about discipline and throwing shit from certain angles and keeping shit tight. That shit really isn't gonna be something you want to be spending all your time learning to respect the sport and staying at a certain angle and shit. You need to go to an MMA gym if your goal is MMA, and your MMA shit is going to be perfect for self-defense also, because it's going to teach you distance and movements and things like that too. So I would say, man, if your coach has some really strong credentials, you should be comfortable. If there's any pro fighters in there, you should see what they're good at, see what they're bad at, and make a decision if that's the right place for you. If you're not trying to turn pro, man, you should just have fun doing the shit and just say, you know what, I'm gonna do like 5 amateur fights in about a year and a half and just do it because that's what I want to do. If you're trying to go pro, I would literally go to a pro training camp though. I'll go to a local place, man, and do about 6 months in there, and then I'll go to somewhere like Team Alpha Male where they literally take guys in from the streets and let them join the team, you know what I mean? And then you're gonna be with one of the best teams that you could ever fucking go to right there. Just as an example, obviously I don't know what part of the country you're on, what part of the globe you're in, but that's how I would personally play it. If I was gonna go into an amateur fight in MMA for real, I would literally train myself for about 6 months and I'll just go do it because I'm comfortable everywhere. I'm already comfortable, but I'm not stupid enough to know that I can't do it right now. I would literally get my cardio right. I would train myself in my garage and say, hey man, somebody's gonna kick my ass. They're just gonna kick my ass first, and then I'll kind of see how that fight goes, and then I'll decide if I want to pursue this or not. I think you're doing all the right things by asking the questions, but you just got to make sure that you're actually going to do it. And once you do it, man, just stick to that shit. Do it, whatever your goal is. 1 fight, 2 amateur fights, 3 amateur fights. Just do all of that shit, man. It's only one life to live, man, so you might as well do what the fuck you want to do. I don't know what else to say. Oh, yeah, and don't fail any USADA tests, man. Do that shit clean at least the first time. If you're going to get on some shit after it, man, I'm not mad at you. But at least just do it all natural the first time so you can get your confidence up and know that you don't need any of those cheap pills or those dick pills. I don't know what else to say. Man, fuck it. It is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments.